In 2011, Latoya Ammons and her children moved into a quiet home in Gary, Indiana. Soon their lives turned into a nightmare. Unexplained noises, shadowy figures, and disturbing behavior from her kids. The strange events drew in doctors, police, and even a priest, leading to one of the most chilling cases of alleged possession ever documented. Today, we'll dive into the terrifying story behind the Ammons family and the house that left everyone searching for answers. If you're fascinated by true crime and mysterious events like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into cases that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Latoya Ammons was a single mother raising her 3 children, a 12-year-old daughter and 2 sons, ages 9 and 7. In 2011, they moved into a small, nondescript home on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. The house was typical of the area, a modest rental with 3 bedrooms, a basement, and an unassuming exterior. Not long after settling in, strange things began to happen. The first signs were subtle, unexplained noises that couldn't be traced to any source. Footsteps would echo through the house, though no one was walking. Doors creaked open on their own, and Latoya occasionally saw shadowy figures out of the corner of her eye. But when she looked directly, nothing was there. These occurrences grew more unsettling. Latoya's children, who had been healthy and happy, began acting strangely. They experienced sudden mood swings, becoming unusually aggressive and withdrawn at times. The youngest boy would speak in a deep, unnatural voice, and the children would sometimes stare blankly at the walls for hours. Even more alarming, they would claim to see figures that no one else could see, figures that they said would talk to them or move things in the house. As these events continued, the family became increasingly terrified. What had started as strange noises soon evolved into something far more disturbing, and Latoya began to fear that something dark had taken hold of their home. As the weeks passed, the strange occurrences in Latoya Ammons' home became more extreme. One of the most disturbing incidents involved her 9-year-old son. During a family gathering, the boy reportedly levitated off his bed in full view of multiple family members. His body lifted completely off the mattress, hovering for several moments before suddenly dropping back down. Family members, terrified, gathered around him, praying until he regained consciousness. But that wasn't the only bizarre behavior the children displayed. Latoya's 7-year-old son was said to walk backward up a wall in the presence of a nurse and a caseworker, flipping over and landing on his feet. This event was documented by the Department of Child Services in their official report, and the professionals involved were unable to explain what they had seen. In addition to these frightening physical manifestations, the family suffered from sudden and severe mood swings. Latoya herself often felt overwhelmed by a sense of dread and would lash out in anger for no reason. Her children exhibited similar behavior, becoming aggressive or deeply withdrawn without warning. Sometimes the children would wake up with mysterious injuries, scratches, bruises, and welts that had no clear cause. Other strange phenomena were constantly present in the house. Footsteps echoed through empty rooms. Unidentified liquids would appear on the floors, dripping from the walls without explanation. Electronic devices malfunctioned frequently. Lights flickered, appliances would turn on or off by themselves, and the family's phone would ring with no one on the other end. Desperate for answers, Latoya sought help from medical professionals. She took her children to doctors and psychologists, hoping to find a logical explanation for their erratic behavior. However, despite numerous evaluations, none of the experts could offer a clear diagnosis. While some suggested it might be psychological stress or trauma, they couldn't explain the physical events, leaving Latoya frustrated and increasingly convinced that something beyond the natural was happening in her home. As the strange events in Latoya Ammons' home escalated, she grew increasingly concerned about the well-being of her children. Their behavior had become so erratic and disturbing that she sought medical help, hoping for an explanation. She took them to various doctors and psychologists, describing their mood swings, aggression, and the more alarming physical manifestations. During these visits, the children underwent numerous tests and evaluations. Medical professionals searched for signs of mental illness or trauma, but none of the assessments provided any clear answers. Psychologists examined the children, considering conditions like schizophrenia or delusional disorder, but the children didn't fit any known diagnosis. Despite their efforts, doctors couldn't pinpoint the cause of the bizarre behavior. One particularly disturbing event occurred during an evaluation at a medical facility. Latoya's youngest son was being examined by a psychologist and a nurse when something truly shocking happened. In front of both professionals, the boy suddenly walked backward up a wall. According to reports, he ascended the wall, flipped over, and landed on his feet without missing a step. Both the psychologist and nurse were horrified by what they witnessed and immediately left the room. This incident was later documented in official reports by the Department of Child Services, adding to the growing list of unexplained phenomena surrounding the family. The medical professionals involved in the case were left baffled. While some suggested that the children might be acting out due to stress or other environmental factors, none could offer a conclusive explanation for the extreme behaviors they had observed. Several doctors admitted they had never encountered anything like this before and struggled to make sense of what they had witnessed. Official reports from the Department of Child Services noted that while many theories had been proposed, none could fully explain the extraordinary events occurring in the Ammons home. In the end, the medical evaluations provided no answers, leaving Latoya and her children in a state of confusion and fear. The psychological and physical tests couldn't account for what had been seen by professionals, deepening the mystery of what was truly happening to the Ammons family. As the strange behavior of Latoya Ammons' children continued, concerns over their well-being reached the Department of Child Services, or DCS. In 2012, DCS officials and local police were called to investigate possible child neglect, given the alarming physical and psychological symptoms the children exhibited. The focus was on ensuring the children's health and safety, but what authorities encountered inside the Ammons home would leave many of them unsettled. During one visit, police officers and DCS caseworkers entered the house to assess the situation. Almost immediately, unusual events began to unfold. One officer reported his audio recording equipment malfunctioning inexplicably. Despite fresh batteries, the device would power down on its own and repeatedly fail to record. Other officers noticed strange occurrences during their investigation, including photographs that later revealed shadowy human-like figures not visible at the time the photos were taken. In one instance, a police photo captured a strange, misty figure near a window, which officers couldn't explain. DCS officials also documented several alarming incidents. One social worker reported witnessing an event that would become central to the case's credibility. According to her account, one of the Ammons children was suddenly lifted off the ground and thrown across a room by an unseen force. This event was witnessed by multiple people and noted in the official reports. Despite initial skepticism, the social worker expressed shock at what she had seen and was unable to offer a logical explanation. Following these visits, the case was formally documented by DCS with detailed descriptions of the alleged paranormal activity. The reports included the unusual behavior of the children, the physical events witnessed by professionals, and the concerning environment inside the home. Although these accounts were disturbing, they also added credibility to Latoya Ammons' claims that something beyond her control was happening to her family. Due to growing concerns over the children's safety, DCS made the decision to temporarily remove the children from Ammons' custody. The rationale was to protect them from further harm, though no clear evidence of abuse or neglect was found. The children were placed in temporary care while the investigation continued. This period of separation was devastating for Latoya, who believed that whatever was afflicting her children was tied to the house itself. Despite her pleas, the authorities felt they had no choice but to act in the children's best interests. This marked a turning point in the case, with more officials and professionals becoming involved, all of them confronted by the increasingly bizarre and unexplainable events surrounding the Ammons family. After exhausting medical and psychological avenues with no clear answers, Latoya Ammons turned to her church for spiritual help. Desperate and terrified by the increasingly strange occurrences in her home, she sought guidance from local clergy. Her pastor, recognizing the severity of the situation, referred her to Father Michael Maginot, a Catholic priest experienced in handling cases of demonic possession. Father Maginot agreed to meet with Ammons and visit the house. During his initial visit, he too witnessed several disturbing events. According to his account, he saw objects move on their own, lights flickering, and felt a heavy, oppressive presence in the home. Convinced that this was a case of spiritual affliction, Father Maginot sought permission from the Diocese of Gary to perform a series of exorcisms. The exorcism process was both lengthy and intense. Father Maginot performed several rituals on both Latoya and her children, starting with prayers of deliverance and escalating to full exorcisms. The priest reported experiencing resistance during these rituals, including strange physical reactions from Latoya and her children. He described moments when they would convulse, speak in deep, unnatural voices, or react violently to holy water and prayers. At one point, Father Maginot recalled a particularly unsettling event. While reciting prayers, Latoya reportedly lifted slightly off the ground, a phenomenon he had never witnessed before. Despite the terrifying nature of these encounters, Father Maginot persisted, convinced that an evil force was at work. Over the course of several months, he performed multiple exorcisms, both in the church and in the Ammons home. He described these as some of the most challenging cases he had ever faced, but noted that with each exorcism, the family's condition began to improve. Reports from Latoya and her family supported this. After the final exorcism, they claimed the strange occurrences in their home gradually ceased. The mood swings, bizarre behavior, and physical disturbances subsided. Latoya's children returned to their normal selves, and the oppressive atmosphere that once filled their home lifted. Father Maginot's intervention appeared to have worked, and for the first time in months, the family felt at peace. While the exorcisms brought relief to the Ammons family, the case itself continued to captivate the public, sparking debate over the nature of the events and the role that faith played in their resolution. As news of the Ammons family's ordeal spread, the case quickly gained widespread media attention. The Indianapolis Star was among the first major outlets to cover the story, publishing an in-depth article that detailed the chilling events, official reports, and eyewitness accounts from doctors, social workers, and police officers. The extensive coverage by a reputable newspaper gave the case significant credibility and drew national interest. Soon, TV networks and paranormal-focused documentaries picked up the story, each eager to explore the bizarre events that had unfolded in Gary, Indiana. One of the most notable figures to take an interest in the case was paranormal investigator Zak Bagans, known for his work on the television show. In 2014, Bagans purchased the Ammons home with the intent of conducting a thorough investigation into the alleged hauntings. His experiences inside the house were documented in his film. Bagans and his crew reportedly encountered strange occurrences during filming, with some crew members claiming to suffer from unexplained health issues and violent nightmares after visiting the house. Despite capturing footage and gathering what he believed to be evidence of paranormal activity, Bagans ultimately made the decision to demolish the home in 2016. He cited its malevolent history and the intense energy within the house as his reasons. Bagans claimed that the home had a dark and dangerous presence that should not be left to affect others, believing the destruction of the house might end its influence. The media and public reactions to the case were mixed. Many were fascinated by the level of documentation from law enforcement, medical professionals, and social workers, an unusual level of credibility for a case involving paranormal claims. However, skeptics questioned the validity of the events, suggesting that psychological, environmental, or social factors could explain much of what had occurred. Some dismissed the case as a product of hysteria or manipulation, while others remained open to the possibility of supernatural involvement. Despite the differing opinions, the story of Latoya Ammons and her family remains one of the most well-known and well-documented cases of alleged possession. The extensive media coverage and subsequent documentary brought the case to the forefront of discussions about the paranormal, leaving a lasting impression on those who followed the events. After enduring months of terrifying events, Latoya Ammons and her family finally moved out of the house on Carolina Street. Once they left, the strange occurrences that had plagued them, levitations, shadowy figures, unexplained injuries, stopped completely. In their new home, they reported no further paranormal activity. For Latoya, this confirmed her belief that whatever dark force had been tormenting her family was tied to the house itself, and not to her or her children. The house, however, continued to intrigue those who followed the story. Due to the level of documentation from credible sources, police officers, social workers, doctors, and even a priest, the case became one of the most well-documented examples of alleged possession in modern times. The Department of Child Services reports, combined with eyewitness testimonies, gave the case a weight that most paranormal claims lack. These official records made it difficult to dismiss the events as mere superstition or exaggeration. Despite this, the case remains highly controversial. Skeptics argue that the events can be explained by psychological factors, environmental stress, or even a case of mass hysteria. They point to the family's difficult circumstances, financial struggles, a single mother raising 3 children, as potential triggers for the extreme behavior seen in the children. Some psychologists have suggested that the children may have been influenced by Latoya's own fears, leading to a collective reaction based on psychological distress rather than paranormal forces. On the other hand, believers in the supernatural view the case as undeniable evidence of possession. They emphasize the number of credible witnesses who reported strange phenomena, professionals with no prior connection to the family, who had no reason to fabricate their experiences. The fact that so many independent parties documented seeing inexplicable events, such as a child walking up a wall or objects moving on their own, strengthens the argument that something unexplainable was happening in the Ammons home. Today, the case remains a topic of debate between skeptics and believers, each side holding firm to their interpretation of the events. Whether it was psychological or supernatural, the legacy of the Ammons case continues to be one of the most compelling and controversial stories of alleged possession, leaving behind more questions than answers. The Latoya Ammons case has continued to capture public interest, and in 2024, Netflix released a movie adaptation titled The Deliverance, inspired by the events surrounding the alleged possession. The film draws directly from the documented experiences of Ammons and her family, highlighting the eerie and unsettling occurrences that took place in their Gary, Indiana home. The Deliverance is a dramatized version of the case, blending real-life events with elements of suspense and horror to bring the story to a broader audience. The movie follows a fictionalized version of Latoya and her children, exploring the terrifying events they experienced, from the mysterious noises and shadowy figures to the infamous incidents of levitation and wall walking. The film also delves into the roles of the police, social workers, and medical professionals who became involved, adding a layer of realism that grounds the supernatural elements in the well-documented reports that accompanied the real case. One of the key focuses of The Deliverance is the psychological and emotional toll the events took on the family, mirroring the real-life struggles Latoya Ammons faced as a single mother. The filmmakers consulted public records, including DCS reports and police files, to ensure that the film stayed true to the documented facts, while also amplifying the horror elements to create a more cinematic experience. Since its release, the Deliverance has reignited debate over the case, with viewers divided between those who see it as a portrayal of genuine supernatural events and those who view it as an exploration of psychological breakdown under extreme circumstances. The film doesn't provide easy answers, much like the case itself, leaving audiences to draw their own conclusions about whether the events depicted were rooted in the paranormal or had more earthly explanations. The Deliverance has helped keep the Ammons case in the public eye, introducing it to a new generation and ensuring its legacy as one of the most talked about stories of alleged possession in recent history. With its mix of fact and fiction, the movie brings the terrifying and mysterious experiences of the Ammons family to life once again, further cementing the case's place in both popular culture and paranormal lore. The Latoya Ammons case remains an enduring mystery, with no definitive answers to explain the disturbing events that unfolded in that small house in Gary, Indiana. Despite extensive investigations from police, doctors, social workers, and a Catholic priest, there has never been a conclusive explanation for what happened. Yet the sheer volume of documented evidence from credible sources, official reports from the Department of Child Services, police photographs, and testimonies from medical professionals lends weight to the idea that something extraordinary took place. For many, this case continues to captivate because it straddles the line between the natural and the supernatural. It's rare to see a story of alleged possession backed by so many first-hand accounts from professionals trained to observe and evaluate critically. Whether you believe the events were the result of paranormal forces or are skeptical, the mystery of the Ammons case persists. It taps into our deepest fears about the unknown and challenges our understanding of what is possible. As we reflect on the details of this case, it's clear that it will continue to be a topic of fascination for those interested in the paranormal, true crime, and the intersection between the two. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Were the events in the Ammons home a true case of possession, or is there a more rational explanation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this case as intriguing as we did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into some of the most chilling and unexplained stories out there. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update.